Hi, and welcome to a special edition of the Foolish Tech Show. We're getting ready to change up our schedule here with our 365th episode, including this one starting on Wednesday. And we haven't fully determined what we're going to set that schedule at, but you'll be able to check it out at foolishtechshow.com. And otherwise, we're going to basically reduce the days and focus more on some training style videos, and what better to start it off than the CryptoPrevent V8 client. Since we just got done setting up a manual for it, we're going to spend this show talking about the CryptoPrevent client and all the protections and features and everything it offers there. So let's go ahead and get started. First off, just announce that we have a CryptoPrevent V8 client manual available now. That's on the CryptoPrevent technical information page, which you can get to in this drop down here from our main site or anywhere on our site. And once you get there, you'll see the revision notes at the top. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see the CryptoPrevent V8 client manual, and it has all the tabs broken down, the installation, and some additional notes and things all set up and laid out pretty nicely here for you. If you have any issues with these boxes dropping down or expanding for any reason, you can use this link to get a list of them all. Just keep in mind that these are backwards, but each title tells you which one is what. And of course, you can click on it to go to that specific page and read more about the information there. Or if you wanted something more that you could print out or just view all at once, you can use this link, and that will show you this one where it just has everything listed out and ready to go for you. So that is our manual, and we're going to spend the rest of this show going over majority of the steps in this show and probably adding things here and there. So let's go ahead and get that started. And to start off, you would want to go to the CryptoPrevent page if you haven't gotten a client already. And you can always get to that from this link or just clicking the main title here from anywhere on our site, foolishit.com. And if you scroll down a little ways, you got the download option for the free edition, and we'll be going over the differences between the free edition and the premium editions. And then you have two options for the premium edition. You can go with the subscription model, which is $15 every year and will automatically renew, and your protection will always stay up to date as long as your subscription is active. And you have the premium edition, which is a single year license for $20, and after that time your CryptoPrevent premium would expire and you would have to repurchase to get those premium features back. You can go with either option for the premium edition, and this will protect up to 5 of your personal computers. The premium editions are only available for personal usage on up to 5 computers. If you wanted to use CryptoPrevent Premium on commercial products, you probably want to look at our bulk resale or white label license packs, and we'll have another video that will focus on those two topics later. However, you can use this. It's a little bit different on the licensing terms for commercial usage. One license goes for one system on a commercial license, so a single purchase here could go on one commercial computer. But either way, you can download the free version and get started that way. I've already done that here. Or if you purchase a premium edition, it will go through and give you a download link after you've gone through the purchase process. Let's spend a little bit of time looking at the purchase process. So if you go into the premium edition subscription, we'll choose the annual one here. You'll see the checkout page. You can order how many you need here. Again, for personal usage, you can have it on to up to 5 systems that you personally own. For commercial usage, you want to adjust this quantity for how many systems you have in the commercial usage. If we have any coupons going on at the time, you can apply them here, and then you would fill out your information here as far as your information, billing address for the card you're going to use, and the credit card information. Then just make a payment, and just understand that whenever you do purchase, you're agreeing to our terms of service, so you may want to review those here as well. And that would apply with the all purchases, all sales and promotion, and CryptoPrevent software licensing terms. Alright, so if you do have any questions or issues with the checkout process, you can always feel free to contact us at sales@foolishit.com. You can see it right down here at the bottom. And we'll be more than happy to assist with any issues or problems you might run into, or any questions you may have. Alright, so we'll go ahead, and we downloaded the free edition here, and you can see we have that here, and then we have the extracted version of it here. I've gone ahead and extracted it so we can show you a little bit more here, because whenever you download software, you do want to verify and make sure that nothing was corrupted during the transmission from the server to your system. And we have 2 hashes that you can look at to verify that and make sure that the software was coming from us and no one intercepted it. But if you scroll down on our CryptoPrevent page here, under our software FAQs, the last one here we have is the CryptoPrevent exe hash, and you can see the hashes for version 8 here. And if you're wondering how to verify these hashes, we also have another utility, QuickAccess, which is completely free for usage, and you can download that from this page. The link is there on the down here at the right there. And once you download that, you'll extract it and run it. Same process here. You can extract and run it, and you'll get this window. From there, you'll want to go into the zip file, and you can just drag and drop it on top here. And then same thing for the extracted file, and you can go ahead and do both of them at the same time. And to compare the hashes, what you'll want to do is, back on the CryptoPrevent page, we'll start with the zip file first, and we're just going to double click and copy this SHA-3 hash, and make sure that we're on the zip tab. Just say compare hash. We'll paste that hash in, and it does match the SHA-3 hash there. And you can also just eye them and glance at them if you want. 41C B706 looks good, and you could just double click and copy each one of them, but usually if you go with the highest one and that matches, it's very, very unlikely that there's any issues with that. But then you can do the same thing with the setup exe. So we'll double click and copy the SHA-3 hash and say compare hash, and does match. So both of those were verified downloads, so we can be sure that those are good downloads and ready for us. We're going to go ahead and close out of some of these windows here. Alright, and now we'll start on the setup process. So at this point, you've already downloaded CryptoPrevent setup and extracted it and verified your hashes to make sure everything is legit and looking good. Then you'll just double click on this exe and say run here, and yes to agree to the elevation. And we can close that window and start off here. So we'll just say next. Fairly standard EULA as far as licensing terms. You can choose whether or not to create a desktop icon to launch CryptoPrevent, and we'll go ahead and install. Now, once you've installed, it is very important that you do want to run CryptoPrevent afterwards, because just installing it does not enable any protections or settings or features. So you do need to run it to make sure that you can apply pick a protection plan or customize the individual settings as you wish there. So we are going to go ahead and say run CryptoPrevent, but it is currently installed on the system, and we'll go through the rest of the process here. This verifying system settings is going through and making sure you have all the required dependencies and additional files that may be needed to run CryptoPrevent and everything to operate smoothly. And on the first run of the free edition, you'll see this message, which will ask you if you have a product key for premium features. So if you did purchase the subscription or single year term, you can go ahead and say yes here and enter the product key. We're not going to do that at this current point. I want to show you the free edition first, and then we'll come back and look at this process here, as well as how to convert the free edition from to the premium edition. So we're going to go ahead and say no here to start off with the free version. If you say yes here, it'll open up the CryptoPrevent page so that you can make a purchase, but we'll go ahead and say OK to start the main interface. So this is the CryptoPrevent main interface. You can see that it starts off with no settings applied, and we'll come back and go through all of these settings and the various settings under the rest of these tabs. But since we're on the free edition, we'll go ahead and show you how to get onto the premium edition if you started off with free. And to do that, you'll go to the Get Premium tab, and you will copy and paste your product key into this box here, and then say activate. And it will go through and verify that product key on the server, and you will need a direct internet connection right now to get that process completed and verify and activate your copy. But once it goes through and it's verified the key, it'll ask you if you want to schedule updates every day at a random hour, and throughout your term, as long as you have a valid premium edition, then you'll get all the updates, major revisions, everything, all the way up until your subscription expires or your key is no longer valid. So we do highly recommend that you enable schedule updates at every day. If you don't want to do it at a random hour, if you want to make sure you pick a specific hour, you can say no here and do it on the updates tab, but we'll go over that tab a little bit more later. So here we're just going to go ahead and say yes, and then it will tell you CryptoPrevent is registered, and you can go through and set your more advanced premium edition only features. So with that, we are going to go back a little bit and show you a couple other tricks from that first run of the free edition. So give me 1 second and we'll be right back with that. All right, so to show you the beginning setup and starting off with the premium edition, we're going to start again from the completed installation where it's asking us to run CryptoPrevent for the first time. And this one's a neat little trick. If you go ahead and copy your product key from your email and you have it on your clipboard and ready and available, when you hit finish here and CryptoPrevent runs for the first time, we'll actually detect that product key on your clipboard and go ahead and register it for you, and we'll watch that process go through here. And again, just remember that you do need an active internet connection to be able to register and validate your premium edition key. So we can see that the CryptoPrevent premium key was detected on the clipboard and has been successfully registered for us. So at this point, it will go ahead and ask again if we want to schedule updates every day at a random hour. We'll go ahead and say yes again there. And next it'll load our main interface and allow us to configure the settings. And you can see it starts off right at the premium edition. So you'll be able to go ahead and customize all the settings as you'd like here. Now we're going to do that one more time and show off if you didn't have it copied to your clipboard and show you from there. So give me 1 second, we'll get that set up again. Alright, so we're back with the third and final way to register your premium edition, and this is if you don't have your product key already copied to your clipboard. You would go ahead and complete your installation, say Run CryptoPrevent, and then it will come up and ask us if we have a product key, and this time we're going to say yes to that. So here that we got the have we purchased a product key, I'm going to go ahead and say yes there. We're going to copy and paste our product key in there, say OK, and it will go through the registration process and validate this product key. And then again, it will ask us if we want to schedule updates. We're going to go ahead and say yes again to that. And it will load our main interface and we can set our protections from there. Alright, at this point we're going to go through all of the various settings in CryptoPrevent, and we're basically going to go through tab by tab and explain all the settings and what they apply to and how they apply and what they mean for your protections. Essentially, when you start up CryptoPrevent, as far as protection settings are concerned, you can pretty much enable everything through here. And we are going to go through working with the premium edition, and I'll point out throughout the way which features are available only for the premium edition. So if you don't want to set up any email settings and you clicked yes to set up updates, then you actually don't need to use any of the other tabs here. You can pretty much apply all of your settings directly from this main Apply Protection tab and then hitting the Apply Protection Plan button. So to go over that a little bit, we have a couple options here. The Choose a Protection Plan will basically go through and allow you to select customized settings for the various options here. So you can see you can't select custom settings because you actually have to go through and customize one of these plans or select individual protections, and it will automatically go to custom settings. Otherwise, none basically completely disables CryptoPrevent, so there's no protections being applied to the system. If you hit Apply Protection Plans here, you would see that your effective software protection policies after this would be 0 still. We'll go ahead and do that just to kind of show that off. And we don't need to restart in this situation, but if you were disabling your protections, you would want to restart. With software restriction policies, it doesn't always update, and it's the way that Microsoft uses group policy updates. They kind of stagger and increment them. It could be applied in 2 minutes, it could be applied in 5, 10, 15, all the way up to possibly a day or two. So if you do want to make sure that whatever settings you've changed are in effect, you do want to make sure that you restart the system to ensure that. When Windows starts up, it reads all the group policies and sets them at that time of startup. So that's the only way to ensure whatever changes and settings you've made here have been applied and are working correctly. So we'll discuss a little bit about each plan here. The minimal plan is going to apply basically the protections for the original CryptoLocker threat that was the first ransomware that came out. This basically is a little outdated now. It will provide some protection against other malware and products and advances in ransomware, because a lot of them still do use that same original basic style, but it won't really provide you with all the additional protections and features to protect you against newer threats. So the minimal one is kind of outdated, but it definitely does cause the least amount of false positives and any issues with software or anything else on the system. So you could apply this if you wanted to. Not very recommended in our opinion, though. The default plan applies a little bit more of the additional settings. You can see on the minimal plan, you don't get FolderWatch or filter module enabled. And on the default plan, it does enable those. And when we go through this protection settings plan, we'll go through a little bit more details on what protections are actually included in each one of these plans. But for now, the default plan is pretty much like it says here, our set and forget protection. Essentially, if you set this default plan, you will have little to no issues with any other software or products on the system, and it will catch the majority of newer type items. But there are still further protections you can add and increase your system's security and overall abilities to protect against ransomware. But this one you can pretty much set and, like it says, forget about CryptoPrevent, and it will just do its stuff in the background and shouldn't bother you with anything from there. Moving on, though, the maximum plan adds quite a few more protections, but at the same time it may also cause some legitimate software from operating correctly. The main times that this might be a concern is when you're installing, uninstalling, or updating software in general. Since there's no real enforced standard, a lot of software companies take, probably would say, unsuggested and not Microsoft recommended routes to perform their installations or uninstallations or software updates, and they use some of the locations that malware has been known to hide in, and especially ransomware. So this may cause some issues with those type of items. And the other type is, like it says here, backup software. Certain backup software actually goes through and modifies your Windows boot so that it can boot into a kind of offline state and make a full backup of your hard drive. This is actually good software to have. That does make a fairly complete majority of the time, depending on the software, obviously, but it's one of the better ways to make a full backup and ensure you have a full copy of everything on your hard drives that you're backing up, because nothing's being used. Other backup software can have issues where it might not back up files because Windows or other programs running in Windows might be accessing them. So if you do have this type of software that does modify your boot and kind of reboots your system to make a backup, usually that's what it's using, and that may be prevented in here. When we go over the individual protection settings, we'll show you which setting specifically that would be to disable, and that would put you on a custom settings plan. But if you have that type of software, we do highly recommend having backups. Honestly, there would be no ransomware if everyone had backups and was working with backups correctly and had good backup procedures. So we don't want to disable any way that backup or restore would be possible. So highly recommend you have backup software and disable the protection that we'll talk about later if that causes a problem for you. But before we get on to that, we'll talk about the last setting here, which is the extreme plan setting. Now this will go through and enable all of the protections that CryptoPrevent currently has available. However, there may be some issues with the same idea behind maximum. So the same issues, software installing, uninstalling, updating, or backup software. And furthermore, it enables the FolderWatch HoneyPot detection, which could cause some issues and add some files to your system. So we'll talk more about that when we get into the protection settings again. But definitely, if you enable this protection, go through and test out your settings, all your programs, what you would normally do on the computer. Just make sure there aren't any issues or things that need to be whitelisted or changed before you just forget about those protections running there. But when you do enable the extreme setting, you'll notice that it tells us that we need the QuickAccess tray to be enabled. And you can see our QuickAccess tray is not currently running, but we're going to go ahead and say yes here. And that message basically applies to the FolderWatch HoneyPot detection to be able to alert you inside Windows. It has to have a program to be able to interact with the user desktop environment. So essentially, if the HoneyPot detection is alerted, this tray will be what will let you know about that and give you the option to shut down or reboot the system. You don't have to have this enabled for the HoneyPot detection to work, or if it gets closed for any reason. Essentially what will happen is if HoneyPot detection gets enabled and activated, it will actually just shut down the system straight away. Otherwise, with the tray running, it will give you the option to shut down or reboot the system, which is not recommended. But the main thing is basically it'll alert you to what's happening, so you know why the system needs to be shut down and that you possibly have been infected with ransomware. So we'll go ahead and move on to our quick tray, our quick access notification icon tray icon. Essentially, this is a fairly nice feature. By the way, Extreme is a premium only feature, and the quick access option is a premium only feature. But the tray does give you quite a few added benefits. Aside from just the HoneyPot notification icon or message, it will also give you pop-up alerts if anything has been blocked by any of the protections in CryptoPrevent. You'll see a little notification pop up here and let you know about that. And also it gives you a nice right-click menu where you can get to all the features of CryptoPrevent pretty quickly and easily here. So we'll be going over all of these features throughout the course of this video, so we'll talk more about that later. I think the only one that specifically applies to the quick access tray is this balloon tips enabled. If you don't want to have those notifications popping up and alerting you, you can disable that here. This is a per user setting, so it will only disable it for the current user that you disable it on. But past that, we'll pretty much end up going through all these options throughout the course of this video. Our next option is the kill 'em all silent. Essentially what we've done here is Nick has a program called Kill 'em all that he updated last year on the D7X code base that he's been working on, and vastly improved it, added a lot of performance features and items and options, and we were able to integrate it into CryptoPrevent. Extremely nice feature here. If you have the quick access tray, you're able to access it quickly and conveniently from here. You may notice different options when you are running the quick access tray. If it's started up in non-administrated, non-elevated mode, you'll have two options here to kill processes. You can kill non-essential processes as administrator, which will go through and try to kill all of the processes on the system that aren't essential to Windows running. And you'll have one that is just the kill running non-essential programs as a user, and that will kill all of the programs that are running in your current user's context. It won't kill anything that may also have administrative context running in a different route. But essentially the best thing to know about that is If you have the two options and you do have administrative rights on your system, running as admin is the better route to go. This button here always runs as admin because the CryptoPrevent interface requires admin to launch. And we'll show off a little bit about what that does here. So we'll open up a few various programs. We'll leave that on. And so the best feature and time to use this is, say you have a web page that looks suspicious or is giving you some random alerts and you don't trust hitting the X button or hitting OK or cancel or whatever may be popped up there. The kill apps now is your best friend at that point. Essentially with those type of programs and pop-ups on web pages and things, the X button, the cancel button, anything like that, closing out of the page, could be designed and programmed to actually perform other tasks. So it could be the same as hitting the OK button. Essentially buttons you can program to do whatever you'd like there. So it doesn't actually have to cancel. It could just be the same as hitting OK there. So if you don't trust hitting that, you can open up the CryptoPrevent main interface and hit this Kill Apps Now button. Or the easier, more preferred method would be the tray icon, because you'll always be able to get to that. And you can just say kill non-essential programs as admin. And you'll see that it killed all of our processes except our open window here for our Explorer. Since Explorer is a essential Windows program, it does not shut down Windows Explorer during that process. So that is there. Extremely helpful if you have Windows that you can't get closed. This will almost certainly always close all of the non-essential apps on the system. And moving on from there, we'll go ahead and talk about our other options here. You noticed if we had the maximum, default, and extreme protections enabled, you got both of these options enabled here. The use protection plan setting doesn't really matter here, but it will matter if you decide to uncheck this. You can see it will take you to a custom setting since that's not one of the specific plans. And to go over what that means is the FolderWatch check here will enable or disable all of the FolderWatch protections, which we'll go over those more when we go into the protection settings tab here. And same thing for the prevent file types. This will disable our filter module. And we'll go over more of those settings in the protection settings tab. So if you disable both of these, it doesn't matter what you have under the protection settings tab for filter module or FolderWatch and HoneyPot detection. Those items will all be disabled and ignored. Clicking these will enable and activate those. So. All right, so before we move on to the protection settings tab, we'll go over this bottom section here, which will be available throughout all the tabs that we go through. But basically this text down here shows you the current effective software restriction policies that are in action and applied on the system, and the number of hash definitions that are currently loaded. This is our standard hash definitions. When we get to the updates tab, we'll talk a little bit more about our beta definitions you have the option to enable. But you can see that right now we have about 51,000 hashes loaded and available, and those are essentially all confirmed malware or problematic items. So past that, we have our apply protection plan, and what this button will do is we'll actually go through and apply all of the settings that you've set and customized here. So essentially what you would want to do is pick a protection plan and then hit this apply protection plan to actually enable and activate those changes on the system, and from there it will ask you to reboot after that. And that will ensure that any of the software restriction policies have been applied. The last button we have here is our test protection button, and we can see that currently there are no protections applied. And do make note that currently right now the test protection only applies for the %appdata folder, which we'll take a look at here. And that is your app data roaming folder. So it only tests that a software restriction policy is applied to block EXEs from here. We do have future plans to widen that test protection and give you a more comprehensive look at all of the protections that are applied and features that are enabled. So that will come out in a later update. But past that, we'll go ahead and move on to the protection settings tab after this and go over the customizable options you have for each of these settings and what each of these plans really enables and disables. So, all right, so we'll move on to the protection settings tab. And basically this will allow you to review or change any of the protection plan options that you might have selected on the beginning, or customize and set your own level of protection here. The way these are broken down are into the software restriction policies, which are all of the built-in Windows protections that CryptoPrevent can enable. And we've broken them down by the various plans, so you'll see what gets enabled for each of those plans just by clicking on each of these tabs. The prevent file types, which is our filter module, and that is a Foolish IT developed protection method. And then the FolderWatch and FolderWatch HoneyPot Tab, which are another Foolish IT protection method. So the software restriction policies that we'll go over next here basically are all protections that are an option for protection built into Windows. So Windows is actually handling majority of the protection for these settings and how it's applied and how it works from there. So this is using built-in Windows technology to assist and protect your computer. CryptoPrevent is just enabling those options for you. So to start off here, the minimum plan, we can see it protects these 4 locations with software restriction policies, and all of the software restriction policies are going to apply to quite a large number of executable extensions that Windows by default allows to be executed. And we'll go through some of the places that each one of these protects. And again, this is the minimal plan, so the bare minimum things to set. Not what we completely recommend, but definitely do recommend having all of these enabled. We just recommend having a higher plan set with additional software restriction policies in place to protect against the newer variants of ransomware out there. So our minimum plan protects against app data and app data /*. What that means is that it protects against these same locations that's in app data, which is we saw as the app data roaming folder. And then this protects against all of the subfolders that are one level deep in app data. Next is our local app data, which we'll check that one out here. And we can see that protects against our app data local, so the root of this folder will be protected against any executable files. And interesting thing to point out here is that the reason these are included on the minimal plan, and were the original reason why CryptoLocker started out with those, is right now you can see we have, these are kind of faded folders. And that's because currently I have our view file options set to show hidden and protected operating system files. If we disable that, you'll see that we don't see that app data folder anymore. So it's kind of hidden from the user interface. And that's why ransomware and a lot of malware in general, viruses as well, all like to hide in those locations because it's not easy for you to click around and stumble across them unless you have those options enabled to view them, which is not default and normally not needed on standard Windows operation. But we'll go ahead and close out of here. And the last place we have protection is the recycle bin, because you don't want anything actually executing inside of your recycle bin. Basically, this is just a place on your file system that ransomware could put itself and then execute itself directly from this location. So just because it's in the recycle bin doesn't mean it's disabled or stopped from running by default. There are actually ways to launch programs out of there, so they could hide themselves in the recycle bin. Even if you saw it in there, you would think it's not a problem. However, it still possibly could be. So that's why we have that protection available. Another common trick that malware uses is to use the double file extensions. And essentially what this means is, say we have a let's just go look at our stuff, our downloads again here. And let me make sure that the default setting is set here. So by default, Windows hides the extensions for known file types. So you can see how that exe disappeared here, and now we just have QuickHash. Well, the double file extensions protects against this option. So end user sees this and they think that is a QuickHash PDF. So they would just double click on that thinking it's going to open up a PDF file, when in actuality, if we unhide the known extensions, we can actually see that that's really an exe file. So that's what this protection is offering, is anywhere, any location on the system, if it has a double extension that matches one of these followed by an executable extension, then that will be blocked from executing. So if we had that protection enabled and tried to run this, this would be prevented from executing. And since those are hidden by default, it's fairly common for malware to try to hide themselves and fool a user into thinking that they're opening up a document, an MP3, or anything of that nature when they're actually starting a executable file, which could then infect their system and cause lots of problems. The last option on the minimum plan is the right to left override. And if you check out this web link here, that'll give you a little bit more information about it. But essentially, the right to left override is, as it says here, a Unicode character that kind of reverses how letters are done, and could cause you to think more about that file and just want to run it or double click it, or it could actually hide the executable name. So some various techniques and tactics can be used for that, but usually there's no reason for you to legitimately have that running on your system. It's just a way for malware to obfuscate itself from knowing that it's malware there. So that is our minimum plan tab on the software restriction policies. We'll go ahead and move on to the default plan and go over some of the options there. All right, so this is our default plan, and some of the options that we can go over here are, again, we have a couple locations that are blocked from executable files. Our %program data, which is a common file on Vista Plus systems, where applications store their data for all users to be able to access and work with across the whole way. This is similar to what the app data is, but app data is specific for a specific user, where program data kind of applies to the entire system. This is, again, another hidden file location, so you wouldn't be able to see it if you have hidden files hidden. And just another place that malware and ransomware likes to hide and operate from. So preventing data in the root of that folder is always a good idea. The next one is the user profile. This is essentially the same thing. If you click the user folder on the desktop, you normally wouldn't want to have any executables in this location and operating and executing from there. So that is what that protection applies. And then finally, the startup folders. This will protect against locations in your start menu. So here you have the startup options, and if we go ahead and open that, you actually have two locations, one that's a user specific location, which we can see we don't have anything in this one, or the other one is the all users option, which this startup applies to all users. You normally, in 99.999% of the cases, executables don't place themselves in this location to start up. If they do, I would suggest moving them to a regular location you can execute that program file and adding a shortcut to it. In most all cases, definitely in Microsoft recommended cases, you should only have a link icon here, a shortcut available to run from these startup locations. So that's what CryptoPrevent will block against with this protection, is it will block all executable icon or executable programs from being run from those specific folders. Very common technique for malware and ransomware and viruses is to actually put their exe in the startup location so that every time you boot up your system, it kind of reapplies, protect their infections and things like that. This will protect against all those executable forms like all of the other software restriction policies, except for link files. So those will not be protected against here because that's what's expected to be there. Moving on from that, we have a couple options to block specific Windows programs. VSS admin is essentially the volume shadow administration. So if you have system restore enabled, that's essentially using volume shadow copy to make backups, and Windows in a later version actually uses it to make backups automatically of files and programs and things. So disabling this is a good idea because it doesn't hinder any of those operations from occurring. Volume shadowing still works just like normal. However, this is what is used by a lot of ransomware out there to go through and delete your volume shadow copies so that you don't have any of those automatic backup options. So disabling this is highly recommended. There is one very good software we know of out there that this causes issues with, and you can see down there in the description, that's Shadow Explorer. You would need to disable this protection, and to disable it, you just unclick it, apply your protection plan, reboot, and then you'd be fine using Shadow Explorer to explore and look at your volume shadow copies that are on the system. So that's more than fine to do that, but once you're done using that program, you can re-enable this protection and stay protected from any ransomware that may cause issues. The next two are syskey and Cypher. Syskey is used to basically lock your Windows registry, and that can cause problems where it's actually been a big fan of the recent tech support scams. They'll go in and set the syskey, which will essentially lock you out from booting up Windows, and then they'll essentially extort ransom money from you to be able to get that password and get back into your computer again. Once syskey is set, it is extremely difficult to be able to unlock that. So this is extremely good protection and has been in CryptoPrevent for quite a number of versions now. So you should already be protected from those tech support scams if you do fall victim to that. However, please be aware that if anyone calls you up out of the blue and wants to connect to your computer, more than likely it is a scam, and you should not allow them to connect to your computer. In general, even if you get a pop-up message or something telling you to call someone, more than likely that is a scam, especially if they want to end up connecting to your computer. The only people you should allow to connect to your computer are verified technicians from a place that you trust and you're familiar with. Essentially, don't let anyone connect to your computer that you don't fully trust and feel is capable of assisting you instead of scamming you. The next one, Cipher.exe, is used to encrypt and encrypt data and decrypt data using your built-in Windows user encryption, and that's based off your password, but this can be used in multiple ways to encrypt your files as well. So having that disabled doesn't affect any of the actual options where you can encrypt data. So like if we go here and under advanced, you have the option to encrypt contents to secure data. That won't be disabled or have any issues with this protection being enabled, but it will prevent ransomware from utilizing this to try to encrypt your data against your will. Then the last two items we have here are the prevent known malware from starting, and essentially this is just a list of files and locations that malware is known to have been starting from for specific ones that we've gathered over time working in the industry and added to the list here. It won't affect any of your standard regular software, but has been known to be specific files for malware. And then finally, the option to turn off Windows Sidebar and Gadget, which Microsoft actually recommends, because this was a terrible idea that they implemented actually in Vista and 7 Plus. But that essentially is this gadgets option here. If you want to know more about that, or if you enjoy that feature, you can disable this. However, just know that those programs and gadgets aren't extremely vetted, and if one gets added that's malicious, they have a lot of control and ability on your computer. So highly recommend that you disable that and use some other programs. Most all of these gadgets, you can find other software programs that perform similar or even more options than they provide here. So highly recommend having that disabled and turned off. All right, our next and final tab is the maximum plan tab under software restriction policies, and this is the one that gets enabled under the maximum and extreme. And for all of those plans, by the way, each of the previous items has all the protections checked and basically add on top of each other here. But this is the locations that may cause some issues with software installation, uninstallation, or upgrades, and the backup software. So we'll go over a little bit more about what's going on with these items. The first one is probably the most important as far as the software installations, uninstallations, or upgrades. You may need to come in and disable this option, because a lot of software uses the temp folder to directly execute their updates from, and again, not really Microsoft recommended, but so many out there do use this. However, the temp directory is also an extremely great place for malware, ransomware, and viruses to execute from. That's why it's included in this plan. The local app data \* we can remember was the app data local on Vista Plus systems, and essentially the \* means that the root folder of each of these subfolders will be also protected against from execution. But you can see that does include your temp folder, so you'd want to remove all of those possibility from being able to run executables directly from those locations. Again, that can cause some issues with software installations, uninstallations, or updates. So you would want to make sure you disable that protection temporarily if you're trying to perform any of those or have any issues with those. If anything does get blocked by these locations, you'll be able to see in the history tab, which we'll go over later, what location was blocked and what file was blocked. And you could either whitelist it using the policy editor, which we'll go over later, or you can just come in and disable the protection that's blocking that and restart, and then be able to do what you need to do, and then come back and re-enable it, restart, and be protected again. The next option is blocking executables from temporarily extracted archives. And essentially what that means is when you download a zip file like this and you just try to run it from here, it will allow you to execute. However, that is not the route that you should be going to do such a thing. If you ever have a zip file or archive of any kind, you want to make sure that you extract that to a specific location on the file system and then work with it from there. It does add an extra step for you there, but this ensures that you know what you're working with, you do want to use it, and takes that added protection step. Plus, a lot of files will need to fully extract everything anyway. So it's highly recommended that you do that, but I think it was a statistic that like 95% of ransomware, malware, viruses are still spread through email. Most common way to get that is to get a zip file, open it, and then just run whatever's in there. And that can cause all kinds of problems for you. And then it would be in the temp folder, which could end up being deleted or removed and not know that that's the cause of it. So highly recommend that you do have that enabled and take those extra few steps to extract the files and work with it from there. You may see it as an inconvenience, but keep in mind that with all security out there, it's always going to be a battle between convenience and security. The more security you want, the less convenient it's going to be for you. The more convenient you want, the less secure things are going to be for you. So we recommend that you take the minor inconveniences and enable additional protections to further protect yourself, because that's what you're really trying to do here. Moving on from that, we have BCD edit, and this is the built-in Windows executable that manipulates how Windows starts up and operates. This is the one that we were talking about. You may need to disable and be on a custom plan if you do have backup software that restarts your system and does a full drive level clone of your drive for backup. Again, very good backup software if you do have that happening. However, it can also be used by ransomware, malware, viruses to disable you from starting up your computer. So if you do have backup software and you're using that and practicing good backup standard features, you're okay disabling this and then applying protections and rebooting, and that software should operate from there. However, if you don't have that type of backup software, we do definitely highly recommend that you look in and make sure that you have some sort of backup options going on. With all of the protections out there, antivirus on top of this, firewalls, user restrictions, policies, everything. Nothing out there is as guaranteed to prevent any kind of damage from ransomware, viruses, malware, everything in general, as having a good backup plan. We cannot stress that enough, that having backups, you will not have to worry about any of those kind of things happening. You can just restore your system right back to where you were before the problem happened, and you're good to go from there. If everyone starts doing backups, then the world would be a much better place and ransomware would not exist. There's so much we can talk about backups that we're not going to spend too much time on that, but definitely highly recommend that you do have backup software, and if this does cause an issue with it, feel free to disable this and continue using that backup software. The last setting here is a new feature that was added in version 8, and this one is actually only enabled on the Extreme tab. We didn't move it to its own special tab because it's just one item there and it was under the maximum, but on a version we updated it and moved it to Extreme. But essentially this is disabling the Windows script host. Windows basically has a built-in interpreter to run various script files, and ransomware especially has recently started taking advantage of that and running JavaScript and VBS scripts to launch their attacks, and it makes it extremely convenient for them because they know they don't need any additional software to be installed on the system. They just run that script and Windows handles it from there. Disabling this will definitely assist against a lot of the newer variants of ransomware and malware out there. However, it can be used legitimately by a large number of programs as well. We recently found out that having this enabled and being on a domain where you're using login scripts, this could actually cause problems with that and cause the login time to be extremely long, even if it's not actually using one of these scripts that's handled by Windows Script Host. Having that disabled causes some issues with logon scripts. So if you're in a domain environment and you're managing systems with login scripts, make sure that this protection is disabled, because that could cause problems with having those operate and run correctly. But if you're not in one of those situations, or if you're just a standard home user, having this disabled probably 7 out of 10 times is going to be better than having it enabled. Again, you can always come in and disable this protection if something is getting blocked or not working correctly and see if that's the cause. This item actually won't show up under the history tab because disabling this will essentially just stop those things from executing. So you won't really have any event logs or error messages coming up from it. You may have some error prompts coming up, but nothing that CryptoPrevent's able to track or mark or put in history. So just keep that in mind. If something's acting strangely when you're trying to run it or operate it, you may want to try disabling this first and seeing if you're able to do what you need to do. Majority of the time, if something does need the Windows script host, it's only going to need it for a certain action or event. So you could probably disable it, restart, and run that action, then re-enable it, restart, and be protected again. So just keep that in mind for that. And that concludes our software restriction policies tab. So we'll move on to the prevent file types tab here in just 1 second. All right, so we'll move on to the prevent file types, and this is our filter module, as it's also known. And this protection feature was added in version 7, I believe, and was a beta feature at the time. Mainly it was in beta because of the issue it may cause with certain exe or COM files from launching. That filter module has actually been completely rewritten from the ground up. Nick based this as well on the D7X code base that he's been working on, and we have not seen any of those type of issues since that. So if you had any issues with the program filtering prior to this, then you can feel safe re-enabling it on version 8 and know that those programs should all launch without any issues or problems from there. But let's go over a few details as to what you see here. As far as the default plan goes, these top 3 checkboxes are will be what's enabled. If you go with the maximum or extreme, it also enables this exe com files, and we'll go over a little bit about what each of these means. So CPL files are, as it mentions there, control panel items, and this is actually the older version of control panel items, so having these disabled is good in majority of all cases, but it could cause some issues in various things. Lots of Windows has legacy backup things that make it so older things still work right, and these are still around and exist. But essentially the differences here between the prevent and always prevent suspicious and always prevent is this always prevent will do just as it says, will always prevent these file types from ever executing or having the ability to launch. The prevent suspicious will use logic and definitions to check against and make sure that these are not in the wrong locations or in unexpected locations, and will still be able to launch from there. So the next file type we have here are SCR files, and those are screensaver files. The reason this one's under suspicious is because people love screensavers, and part of the logic is as long as they are in the correct location, which is under the Windows directory, then those will be able to work and operate fine. However, if you happen to download a screensaver, save it to your desktop, and it could be a malicious file and you try to run it from there, that would be blocked and prevented there. PIF files are a older MS-DOS executable to be able to launch executable files. Essentially any exe you could rename as PIF and it will launch just the same way. Windows will interpret it as that, which is why it's under the always prevent file types. Again, the CPL, the reason why that's checked for always prevent is majority of the time these are always legacy options and items and not the updated since XP way of doing things. So if anything is blocked by this, majority of the time it's going to be a backwards compatibility or legacy or something trying to sneak by as an executable. One key thing here is that if you do have this enabled, the right click and adjust date time here is actually relying on an old CPL style file to set up and adjust here, so that would be disabled when this is enabled. However, the standard route of going through control panel and adjusting your date time here launches without issue or problem, so that would be the preferred route of doing that to be able to ensure that those are still protected. Again, that convenience versus security thing comes into play here. If you put it on suspicious, that'll change your plan type, but should allow you to use the right click option for adjust date time. Or as you can see on this right side, we have a few notification prompts. The default is going to be the message box alert, which basically just comes up and tells you that something was prevented from executing. The allow run option will give you the ability to alert you that something should be blocked from executing, but still give you the option to run it. And the silent blocking will not allow you to run it no matter what, and not alert you other than in the history, and if you have the notification tray, the pop-up message there. The notification prompts only apply to the prevent suspicious and always prevent file type options. It does not apply to the program filtering. And more about what the program filtering is essentially this checks all exe and com files against the hash definitions list before it allows to execute, and if it matches any one of these hash definitions, it is not going to be allowed to run no matter what. So that's why these notification options do not apply here. All of these you will get messages in the history for what was blocked, and it was coming from the filter module or prevent file types option. So that pretty much covers that. Again, just want to shout out the D7X code base. Once Nick rewrote that, the filter module on that code base, no issues that we're seeing in the version 7 beta of this protection feature, and everything seems to be launching and working correctly with exe com files. So definitely do highly recommend to have that feature enabled. And again, that only gets enabled on the maximum and extreme plans, or you can come in and set it as a custom setting yourself there. All right, next tab we have under our protection settings is FolderWatch, and this is one of our not sure how to say it, but this is one of my favorite protection features under the latest version 8 of CryptoPrevent. It was introduced with version 8, and essentially what this will do, it will monitor any locations that you have set here for any file that matches one of these hash definitions. So as soon as that file gets added or changed or moved to one of these locations, it will get scanned against the hash definitions and will get quarantined if it matches one of those hash definitions. So this kind of eliminates if you download something that is malicious and matches one of the hash definitions, it will go through and automatically move that to the quarantine location. You know that file was potentially malicious or bad. A premium only feature is you have the ability to add custom folders here, and that would allow you to protect specific locations in addition to these, or exclusive of these. So you can just set custom locations if you want. Very, very big difference between these two is any of these user folders defined here will protect against not only this root directory, but also any subfolders and files in those folders. So any of the locations here, all of the files and subfolders are monitored and watched and checked against hash definitions. The custom folders that you add are only for that level directory. So if you select a directory that has a lot of subdirectories in it, none of those subdirectories are going to be checked or monitored here. You would have to go in and add each specific directory that you want the files to be monitored in. The reason for that is essentially if someone went in and just added the root of their C drive and had all of their system files being monitored with the way Windows works on the file system, it would just end up causing extreme performance issues and problems, because Windows changes files in a lot of places a lot of times constantly. So do not recommend going in and adding every single folder that you have on your system to protect against, and really it's not needed. Very, very unlikely that, especially with Vista Plus, the way they've locked down the file system more, if a malware, ransomware, or virus is able to get to those locations, they already have administrative access and protections elsewhere have already failed. So protecting locations like your Windows folder, System32 folder could be helpful, but really it's already bad if they're able to get to those folders. Same thing with the program files folder, various locations like that. They already have to have a little bit of access to your computer and can do other things already before they're able to copy to those locations. And again, it would cause performance issues because it's constantly monitoring and watching these files. Like we said, the folder watch option is a free ability for these locations. If you want to add your own custom locations, that would be a premium only feature. And based off of this, the FolderWatch HoneyPot tab is probably one of the most effective ransomware blockers that CryptoPrevent has. Although it is a little bit of the kind of last method of protection to help protect you against. Essentially, if ransomware has gotten past all your other protection features, your antivirus, CryptoPrevent, anti-malware, everything else, and it's gotten on the system, it started running and started trying to encrypt files, that's where this honeypot detection will come into play. This is a premium only feature. It's the only protection feature that we have that's premium only. All the other protections that we've gone over so far are all available in the free version, so no purchase required for any of those. However, the honeypot detection we put a lot of time and effort into, and do consider it a premium worthy feature, because it does do extremely good job of protecting against that. In the description, I'll add a playlist of the examples we've gone through of showing ransomware being active and trying to encrypt files, and this honeypot detection basically shutting it down before it gets to more or so of your legitimate files. So essentially how this works is any of the locations you have protected by FolderWatch, the honeypot detection will go through and add a bunch of honeypot files. Essentially a honeypot is kind of a place meant to attract malicious things. So there's honeypots on networks that are basically fake systems that look like they have important data on them, and they attract hackers and malicious things to try to attack them, and then people are able to be alerted to that and shut the intrusion down. Same concept and idea here is this will put a bunch of documents that ransomware targets and likes to attack, and all of those files there are monitored. If anything is changed on them, the honeypot detection will be launched. It will then launch kill them all and kill all the processes on the system, and as long as you have the tray icon enabled and running, it will present you with a alert letting you know that honeypot detection has been enabled and recommend to shut down your system. Essentially, from what we've found with all of our years of experience in the tech industry, is that while you could try to target that specific malicious executable that's encrypting those files currently, that is not always going to be your 100% surefire route to go. Essentially, ransomware or malware could be launching several executables to encrypt each file if they wanted to, and if it is only trying to take out that one file, then other files are still going to get encrypted and things are going to continue processing. So the only way to be sure at this point, if your system has been infected by ransomware, is to shut the system down and not start it back up again in regular Windows mode. At that point, you would want to take your system to a qualified technician and let them know that the honeypot protection had been enabled and the system shut down, and that there is possibly an active ransomware on the system, and you have data that possibly might not have been backed up, and you want to make sure that the system is clean before they ever start that system up again. There are a few options for cleaning up systems in an offline mode, which is basically you can take the hard drive out of the system, hook it up to another system, and then scan and remove all the files without any of those executables being able to launch or be active. Or you can use bootable CDs like Antivirus Rescue Disk or Windows PE to go through and clean up the system and remove any of those malicious files prior to booting up the system, as well as being able to go ahead and pull any data that you need that hasn't been backed up off of that drive and make sure that it hasn't been encrypted. So the other option it provides you is to restart the system. In all of our videos, that's the route that we go because we're using it on test files and it's not extremely important data that we're working with. And majority of times, ransomware actually doesn't set its startup stuff. It basically gets on the system, starts trying to encrypt files, and at that point, if honeypot detection is enabled, it gets detected, shut down, and killed, and you can restart and it won't start up again. But I would not take that risk if you have data that's valuable or sensitive to you. I would highly recommend shutting the system down and cleaning it in an offline state. If you're not sure about how to do that, highly recommend you take it to a local tech shop or qualified technician and have them clean the system up and back up your files in an offline state. Past that, we have had extremely good results from this style of protection. Normally it will, depending on the ransomware, it could get to a couple of your legitimate files and actually get those encrypted, but the majority of files are not encrypted, and with a majority of ones that we've tested against, it actually won't get past any of the honeypot files before. So it would only attack the honeypot files, encrypt those before it was detected and shut down and killed, and all of your legitimate files would be safe in those situations. But again, it varies, and this is kind of the last stand that you have. Like, if everything else has failed to protect you and this ransomware has gotten through every one of the protections on the system and started encrypting files already, then you're at a bad point already. So shutting the system down is definitely the best option. And again, we have had extremely good luck with this, so highly do recommend it, and yeah, go from there. All right, so that pretty much covers our protection settings tab and all of the individual protections and options you have available there. Basically, you can customize and set any of those, and we'll set you to a custom settings plan, or you can go with one of our customized plans and apply protections from there. Believe that should cover it all. If you want some more details on individual protection locations and other items, definitely check out that manual that we mentioned at the beginning and is in the link down here under the technical information. I've added some more specific locations as far as what all is protected in those various settings, and possibly some additional options and items there. So definitely check that out, and we'll go ahead and continue on with the policy editor tab here in just one second. All right, so the next tab we'll go over to is our policy editor tab, and we'll explain the options you have here. So the first one you see under here is going to be the whitelist policies. And essentially this applies to the software restrictions policies that we went over in the protection settings. This allows you to whitelist specific items to be allowed to run from those locations. Certain programs do use the app data locations to run from. Again, not exactly recommended, since app data implies that it's meant for data only, and executable programs should go into the program files. But there's no strictly enforced rule to do that, and it's convenient to make it so that certain applications are user applications only to get around some of the non-administrative rights that Windows has enforced. However, you can contact those applications and let them know that you'd prefer them to do things the more standard way, but in the meantime you can go through and whitelist them so that they are able to run. You have the ability to add specific items to the whitelist, and we have some custom variable options here, or you can just select a specific path and whitelist that one specifically. The other option you have is to whitelist executables and currently in all blocked locations. This will go through and scan your system for any files that might be in these blocked locations, and we'll go ahead and just run that so you can see what happens here. And although these are applied immediately, since it is software restriction policies, again the same thing for rebooting applies, so you would want to make sure you reboot. However, with this particular button, you would want to go through and look at all of the things that got whitelisted in this operation here. If the system is already possibly infected or might have malicious files hidden and just waiting in lurk, then highly recommend that you go through and look at these and research what each one of those are. We already know from going over in this video that these two are perfectly fine and safe and they're okay to be run from there. However, you might want to check through and see, because this is a fairly blank system, doesn't have any third-party tools or anything loaded on it, but you would want to make sure of all the executables that get listed in here and make sure that they are all a-okay and you know what they're for and why they're there. Definitely feel free to remove any of them that are in here. And again, you wouldn't want to add something that is possibly malicious in here. You do have the ability to add a wildcard star for the whitelist. However, the way software policy restrictions work is if there is a more specific rule under blacklist policies, so one that doesn't include a star, the blacklist policy is going to take priority over the whitelist. So highly recommended that you don't use wildcards unless you absolutely have to, and only use it as specifically as possible. That way you can ensure that this policy is going to take precedence over the blacklist policy. The other option here is we do have the ability to use the custom definitions here. When you add a policy here, you can use one of the custom variables that's applicable to D7X base code. I'll have a link down in the description that will show you some of those options and things. So past that, close out that, we have our blacklist policies. Now, when you have an actual protection plan applied, all of the policies that are put into effect will show up here. And if you need to remove a specific one, which you might find out from the history tab, if a particular policy is causing an application you use all the time to have problems, you can come in and use the search box to search and find that specific rule and remove just that specific one. Just keep in mind that that does not change your settings to a custom protection plan, and next time you apply protection plans, that policy may be re-added, so you might have to go back in and remove it again if you go through and apply the protection plan again. Same options are available on adding a blacklist item. This is a premium edition only feature, so if you want to add your own custom blacklist rules, you can do so. With this, since the blacklist takes priority, wildcards are more than acceptable here. Just keep in mind, if there is a whitelist that is more specific, that whitelist option will take precedence. But if you want to block a program from running anywhere except one specific location that you define, what you can do is just type in that, just like that, and add this blacklist, and that will block that program from running absolutely anywhere on the file system. And then for the specific location you want it to be able to run from, you can add it in the whitelist for that specific location, and that should make it so that the whitelist takes priority, and then this program would be blocked from everywhere except for that one specific location you specified. This again will also take the custom variable names that are available for the D7X codebase stuff, so keep that in mind. And both of these, the whitelist policies and blacklist policies, only apply to the software restriction policy sections. Moving on from that, we have our user hash definitions. So this doesn't expose the built-in CryptoPrevent hash definitions list, but it gives you the ability to whitelist specific hashes that you don't want to be tripped by the program filter or filter module in general or FolderWatch. Then also, so basically that would mean if one of these definitions you want to keep that file even though it is on our definitions list. This may apply especially when you have the beta definitions that we'll go over in the updates tab. If you have one of those there that is getting quarantined by FolderWatch or blocked by filter module, you can add that to the whitelist here. And I would probably suggest adding both the MD5 and the SHA-256. Normally the SHA-256 will take priority, so if you just do that one, it'd be fine, or if you just do the MD5, it would be fine. There are some possibilities of MD5 having hash collisions, which mean two different files could have the same one, so the 256 would be the preferable one to have if you only wanted to add one. Those options are available in the free edition. Adding your own custom blacklist ones are premium only features. So if you wanted to add your own files to not be able to run with filter module enabled or be quarantined automatically with FolderWatch, you can add your own custom blacklist here using the premium edition. And essentially for that, you would just do the hash definition, one per line. And those are definitely not hashes, just example that it'd just be one per line. When you hit save definitions file for any of these 4 tabs, it's going to try to restart the services and program filtering, so those should be enabled automatically. However, to be absolutely sure that it's enabled and fully working as you would expect, a reboot would be recommended. If you do make any changes on any of these and then switch to one, it'll alert you that you've made changes and ask you if you want to save. In this case, we're going to say no since those were all fake, but just a nice little convenient feature I added in there. Then finally, under our policy editor, we have our submit new hash option. And essentially this is a outreach to the community. So if you end up coming across a malicious file and it's not on our hash definitions list, then you can submit it to us to allow us to check and verify it and get it added to our hash definitions to protect other people in the future. There's no such thing as 100% protection for anything. So as new variants come out, new operations, new ways of doing things come about, things might slip past all of the other protection, and this applies to not only CryptoPrevent but any security software out there. There is definitely nothing out there that will protect you 100%, and anything that does, you should question it because they're probably scamming you. But essentially what this will do is do a couple things for you. So let's go ahead and browse for a file here. We'll pick a safe one. You wouldn't want to upload a safe file to us because we're just going to delete it if we find out it's not malicious. But when you browse and add a file, you can see it will calculate the MD5 and SHA-256 for you, and it will let you know if it's on our malware definitions list already or if it's already on your user hash definitions list. If it's not on either, you can see it shows up red here. And if you didn't want to submit this to us because of security reasons or privacy reasons, whatever, not a problem at all. You can use this just to find out these hashes quickly and easily in CryptoPrevent and come back and add them to your hash definitions list. So like we can copy this one and paste it on our definitions list. Copy this one and paste it on our SHA-256 list and save those. And then when we enable FolderWatch, that will actually go ahead and get kicked out. If we go ahead and select it again, you'll notice that it does tell us that it's on our user MD5 and SHA-256 lists. So I'm going to leave that one there. When we do enable protection, we'll come back and check out what happened with FolderWatch on that one. Moving on from the policy editor tab, we'll go to our email settings. This is a premium only feature. So to enable email alerts, you would need to have a premium edition key, but essentially for that, you just click enable email alerts here. If you're using a Gmail account, you can just enter in your Gmail address and your password for Gmail, and then hit send test email save settings, and that will test and make sure those settings and username and password are correct, and then it will save those settings so that in the future any alerts that would come up in our history tab here, you'll actually get an email notification about. Alternatively, you can use the advanced setup if you have any other account other than Gmail, and customize your SMTP server port authentication, and even customize if you want to have the same send to and send from email addresses. Couple things to note on email sending is that on this tab on a local system, this is the only place that these are used. It is only used to send out email alerts. It's not transmitted to Foolish IT in any way or manner. So if you come in and set something up on a specific system, we do not have access to that email password or your email, nor would we even want to go into your email. So just for your peace of mind, we won't have access to any of this information, and where it's stored in the system is encrypted, so no one else can use that location to find out that information either. Couple other notes here is if you do have two-factor authentication set up, especially on a Gmail account, you want to create an application specific password and use that password here so that it can use the account without the two-factor authentication enabled. And also, if you don't have two-factor authentication enabled, go enable two-factor authentication, because you really should have two-factor authentication enabled wherever you can. Just having a password is not enough anymore, so highly recommend that you do enable two-factor auth. However, if you do not have two-factor auth on a Google account, you will need to go into the settings and enable a less secure app feature. And this is when any third-party utility tries to use your Gmail password. It basically requires less secure apps to be enabled. The only secure apps, according to Google, are Google's apps. So you can see in this documentation here, which I'll link to in the description as well, or you can get to through the interface like we just did there, will tell you how to enable less secure apps. But again, if you have to enable that, you really should look into enabling two-factor authentication and creating an application-specific password. Past that, this doesn't have to be your personal email. That's part of the reason why we set up the advanced setup, to be able to send to a different address. You can go out and create just a Google account, Gmail account, enable less secure apps, and just enter this email password and address for that account, and then have it send to one of your regular email accounts. So even if you don't trust what I said, that we have no interest in your email or password at all, you can create a account that's only used to be able to send email out, and then send it to yourself in a different account. So just for that kind of information there. And next we'll go ahead over to our history tab. And essentially this will allow you to review all the alerts and event log entries that CryptoPrevent or any of its protections from software restriction policies, filter module, or FolderWatch or HoneyPot detection all create event log entries, so you can review those here. This is especially helpful if you're trying to diagnose if one of the protections in CryptoPrevent is causing an issue with one of your legitimate applications. Essentially, you run that. If you get a message that it's blocked by a system administrator, that's most likely software restriction policies. If it gets moved to the quarantine, that's FolderWatch. If HoneyPot activates, then that's the HoneyPot detection, obviously. And if you get a message box prompt or allow run box or no protection or no message, it could possibly be the filter module. So you could check from previous startup here to see if there are any events listed there. The beginning of time will check all of the events. The previous startup will just check since the last time you rebooted Windows. If you want a more detailed advanced view, like I said, all of these are event log entries, so you can launch the event viewer from here. Also just a nice, quick, easy way to get to the application event log. All right, moving on from there, we got our updates tab. And when we registered, it asked if we wanted to schedule an update at a random hour, and it did go ahead and enable that when we said yes here. This will essentially create a scheduled task to perform the updates automatically for you. And we'll go check that out here. So this is another way that you could verify that updates are being performed. You'll see that we got a scheduled task here for CryptoPrevent updates, and the random time was 5:22 p.m. So if you want to set a specific time, you can come in and pick a specific hour, and it will update at a random interval during that hour. You can't specify the minute through here because we don't want to have our servers overloaded with thousands of requests at any specific minute, so that time is randomized. You do have the option to go into the task scheduler and adjust it. Please just keep in mind the common courtesy of picking a kind of an offset hour minute time set so that our servers aren't loaded on like an every hour on the hour type deal. You will notice a try alternative schedule creation. Essentially, if your system for some reason has a issue with the way that the schedule task is created, this button will enable after alerting you to the issue that there was a problem creating the schedule task, and 9 times out of 10 the try alternatives schedule creation will work correctly for you. But hopefully you won't have to use that. You can just enable the update schedule and have your time selected. That is a premium only feature, so just remember that. Otherwise, if you're on the free edition, you can always check for updates any interval that you'd like, and you just come in and click this check for updates now button. Last thing on our updates tab is the extended hash definitions. And essentially what this is we have 2 sets of hashes that we distribute. The standard list, which enables a fairly well vetted and very trusted source of malicious hash definitions, and shouldn't have any false positives on that one. If you do, please let us know at support@foolishit.com. We'll be more than happy to look into it and remove that definition from our list. However, if you want further extended protection, you can enable the extended hash definition files and get quite a few more from a little bit less vetted, still trusted sources, but a little bit less vetted, so there may be false positives in there at times. However, this does significantly increase the amount of hashes available there. We'll go ahead and leave that enabled so that you can see when we apply the protections the change in that. So lastly, our About tab is just kind of some information about how CryptoPrevent came about, where it came from, and a shout out to Bleeping Computer. Extremely helpful website, and if you haven't checked them out before, highly recommend it. They got a lot of great articles and helpful information on ransomware and computer security and everything in general. And that is about it. Oh yes, majority of our hash definitions from the standard list are pulled from Sane Security, which is a company that provides hash definitions and things for the free antivirus. The name escapes me right now. Anyway, great company, and we very much appreciate the hash definitions that they provide so that we can use that in the FolderWatch and filter modules. All right, so that wraps up all of the settings and tabs in CryptoPrevent and what everything does and how it works and everything. So let's go through and apply a protection plan here. I'm going to go ahead and apply the extreme protection that is going to enable the beta definitions and all of our protection settings here. And we'll just show you how long that takes to apply and what to expect from there. So we're going to go ahead and say apply protection plan. It may ask you if you would like to whitelist items currently in blocked locations. Go ahead and say yes there. And again, anytime that you do an operation like that, you want to make sure you review the whitelist that were set. But currently now it's going through and applying all of the protections that we have enabled and setting them. And next up, we should see a prompt to restart the system. So again, to make sure that those software restriction policies specifically are in effect, we will want to go ahead and restart the system. Since we're going to show off the test protection button after that, we are going to go ahead and do that on this system. So give us 1 second for it to reboot here. All right, now it looks like our system is back up and running here. We will basically at this point, there's nothing you have to do. The protections are enabled, should all be running and working in the background. You can just go ahead and test out your programs, make sure everything still works for you, not running into any issues. Or to further check, you can open up the CryptoPrevent interface again. And once it gets to verifying settings, we're going to do a test protection, review the whitelist, and then check the history tab so that we can see a little bit more of those things in action. And just to quickly point out here, you can see now that we have 3959 software restriction policies applied and active. And you can see those extended hash definitions list increased almost by 25% there, or almost 50%. Yeah, it was 51, I believe, before, and now it's at 74,000. So quite a few more hash definitions on that extended list. But we can go ahead and do the test protection, and looks like it was applied. And then you can see an example of that notification pop up if you have the notification tray QuickAccess enabled. And it does appear that the protections are implied and working. Again, if you use the whitelist executables currently in all blocked locations, when we applied, it asked us if we wanted to do that, and we said yes. You do want to come in and make sure that there are no suspicious files that have been added to that list and remove them if necessary. And finally, we'll look at the history. So since we just did that test protection, we should have a event from the previous startup listed there, and we'll just show a quick example of that one. So you can see here that the test protection time and date, and that this was a test event. It's a little bit different with actual protection, so we'll show that one off here. And I believe since we added that to that hash definition in the policy editor for our FolderWatch, nope, so it doesn't scan ones, but if we take this file and move it to a different location, yep, FolderWatch detected that hash and has moved it to the quarantine. So if we refresh our desktop here, that file is actually gone. If we go look at the quarantine, we'll see that it was moved to the quarantine folder. And it renamed it with a .cpq, and that is what we believe is a malicious file because it detected a hash there. But one last thing, we'll show off a protection from another protected location. And to do that, I'm going to just copy these files to that location. So since we are on the extreme, we can go into the local app data, put this one in the temp folder, and then try to execute it from here. And we got another blocked message. So the last thing we do before we finish up this video here, we're going to check the history tab and just look at some of those examples, because we've had a couple of them go off here. So that first one was the test event we did. This one was when FolderWatch detected a hash matching file and quarantined it. You can see it tells you the original file name and then what it was renamed quarantine to. And then our final one was when we tried to run a program from a restricted location. You can see that it tells us the file that was tried to execute, and then the specific policy rule that was blocking it. So if we wanted to whitelist that one, we could go into the policy editor and add that path to the whitelist here. So that about wraps it up with everything CryptoPrevent can do. Again, if you want more specific details, you may want to check out our V8 manual that we just put up on the technical information page. But otherwise, we're extremely happy with how version 8 has been adding protection and the response we've gotten back from the community. So we're glad that we're able to provide this option out there for everyone, and hope you enjoy it as well and sleep a little bit better with this protection being enabled. Last thing I want to mention real quick is that we do only advertise this as a supplement. As I mentioned in the video, that there is nothing out there that is 100% safe and secure and is going to protect you. However, you can do quite a bit to help protect yourself. The absolute number one most important thing that you can do is user education. Learning about things that you shouldn't be opening in emails, learning about links and sites that you shouldn't be going to, just general computer usability and how to work with things and where to expect things to happen. All of those things are probably your number one defense in the fight against malware, ransomware, viruses. But you can further increase that, because even that's not going to protect you 100% of the time, with a up-to-date and good antivirus, a up-to-date and good anti-malware. And again, I cannot stress enough that the biggest, most helpful fight weapon we have in the fight against ransomware is probably backup routines. If you have a backup routine that gives you a monthly, weekly, daily incremental backups and then also the ones that reboot systems and give you a full disk cloning backup. Make sure you have something like that enabled. Cloud storage that has revision history, incremental backups. There's any number of ways that you can perform backups, and you can never have enough backups. The more and often you back up, the less likely you'll have any data ever affected by ransomware or be held hostage for your data. And you'll always be able to recover, not just in ransomware, but in so many other situations. If your hard drive crashes, your computer crashes, so many various things could go wrong with data. And our philosophy has always been that if something is important to you, have it in more than 2 locations. So your computer would be one location, a backup would be another, but then have it in at least a 3rd location, possibly something off-site, because anything could happen to that system or the environment that the backups are in. And the more important it is to you, the more backups of it you should have. So never skimp on doing a backup solution and having as many backups as you can possibly keep and maintain for relevance for you. Past that, some further things you can do are look into firewalls, ad blockers, network permissions, user permissions. It's actually extremely effective to run Windows in a non-administrator mode and then have a separate administrative account with a strong password that you only do administrative tasks in and elevate to when needed. Past that, again, the biggest thing else you can do is just keep up on user safety and education, and you should be okay from there. So glad that we can help with CryptoPrevent, adding a little bit to that list and allowing you to sleep more securely and do things without having to worry as much. But again, there are so many things in this fight that you can do to help protect yourself. We just want to encourage all of those and all of the great legitimate programs out there. If you have any questions about it, you can check our tech directory for a list of technicians that use our other software, D72, to support their companies. And those should all be fairly well trusted and experienced technicians. So you can check there if you want to ask questions about how to get any of the other software options that we've talked about. Or you can go to your local technician or whoever you trust to do your computer work and ask them about those specific items. But past that, I hope you've enjoyed this video and the new format that we're going to try doing things with the Foolish Tech Show going on from here. We still will have the option to talk with us live on a more limited schedule, but we hope that we'll be able to use the times that we've taken away to offer you more things like this with a little bit more editing and encompassing information and targeted information. So hope you've enjoyed and hope you have a great and safe day. Thanks.